Hi, everyone. RivkaLeah here. I hope everybody had a fabulous week. Tonight I wanted to talk about finding meaning and your growth in resilience. When you've come through a traumatic experience or a tough or difficult time, we're going to see again how everything ties together. I'm really hoping that everybody is seeing each week how I've been trying to tie things together for you. And as always, I am not a doctor or a therapist. I talk about things that have happened in my own life or in the lives of my friends, and they've given me permission to talk about this. Or these are things that have come to me through the collective, and people have asked me to talk about. And in fact, this is one such topic. One of our wonderful members reached out to me and was struggling with what to do in the absence of justice. How do they continue to move forward when they've come out of a narcissistic situation, or they've come out of some sort of a traumatic situation, car accident, whatever. I'm not going to give you specifics on this individual's situation, but any type of traumatic situation that you can think of. And what can you do if there's no justice that's going to come, or what you may feel should be the justice that is served from that, or the outcome that you would like to see. And there's a lot of different reasons why the outcomes that we want may not happen. And so we're going to talk about what we can do in lieu of that. And there's a lot of different things, and again, a lot of these things are the things that we've talked about all along through all of these past several weeks. And one of them is to acknowledge your feelings, right? When we come through a troubling time, it kind of pulls us down. We may have mental and emotional issues after that. We're struggling. We're not 100% sure, who we are anymore after something like that. So it's okay to acknowledge those feelings and, sit with it and know that you're okay to have these feelings. We don't have to suppress them. We don't have to put them aside and ignore them. But also, if it's appropriate, obviously go and seek some sort of professional help. You have your friends and family. If you're able to seek support through them, and they can help guide you through this. And again, not a doctor or a therapist, but this is sort of like, something bad happens, you're going to go and get some sort of help or support. And if you are still currently in any type of situation that is not safe, please seek out some support. Call any type of professional or authority that you need to help remove you from that situation, because you're always your first priority. And then after, we go through and we acknowledge all of this, what is going on. We need to sit with ourselves and start practicing on all of that self-care that we've been talking about. Again, remember I told you on Wednesday nights, I have my whole self-care night, and that's where that was born out of. I was going through a tough time, and I really needed to do something for me to make me feel like me again. I had to figure out who I was again and what I liked to do. So that's where my self-care routine came in. And I have my Wednesday nights, and I go through my whole little regimen of different, facials and, the little muscle massage things that I have. And, so that's where that came out for me. And again, self-care is going to look different for every single person. You're all going to, hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. Everybody's going to have their own version of self-care and what nourishes them, what fills them all up. And as you're going through that, you may find, I know I did, and for a long time, people would tell me you have to forgive, and I misinterpreted that. I was under the impression I needed to forgive the other individual, or, you're in a bad car accident. How do you forgive this person for hitting you? That type of thing. And I was like, absolutely not. Like, I can't. I did absolutely nothing wrong. How am I going to forgive somebody? Right. And I'm not saying this is the exact situation. I'm using this as an example, everybody. Um, and then it struck me while I was acknowledging what was going on, and I was going through my self care, that the forgiveness was not me forgiving anybody else. It was me forgiving myself. Because quite simply, there are people that you cannot forgive, that you don't want to forgive. Um, they may not have any redeeming qualities or factors that warrant forgiveness. Um, so I struggled with it. There was like absolutely no way. But when we talk about forgiveness, we're talking about forgiveness of ourselves. And again, this is not saying that we did anything to warrant any of the traumatic situations that we may have been in or are currently in. But you still need to give yourself that grace, right? We've talked about that. Give yourself the forgiveness. That's what that is referring to. At least that's how I interpret it. And when it was reframed to me and rephrased from giving forgiveness to giving grace, that that resonated more with me. So, that might be something that people can think about, and that may resonate with you as well. So it's not about forgiving the external circumstances. It's about forgiving and giving yourself the grace to do the self-care, to do the healing, to nurture yourself, to be the one that takes care of you. And, again, while we're in this mode of our self care and our acknowledgement, we are kind of looking and reflecting on everything that happened and what type of a lesson can we take out of this. Um, Sometimes it's very difficult, especially if you're currently still in a situation, or you've just recently come out of some sort of situation, whatever that may be. Sometimes it's hard to say, well, there was no lesson in that. There was no reason that I should have gone through something like that. But once we give ourselves that forgiveness, we give ourselves that grace, we may find some sort of lesson that we can take away from that. There's always going to be something that we've learned, right? We're in a bad situation. What's the one thing that we've learned? We're never going to be in that situation again, right? So there's a lesson. We do not want to have that thing happen again. So as we're going through our self-care and our grace, we're reflecting and we're picking out the little things that happened along the way, whether it was, like I said, a car accident. And I keep bringing up a car accident for a reason, because last week, and this is just a little side note, I was on my way to work. I was talking to my mother, and hands free, of course. And I'm coming up to a construction area, so everybody is slowing down. 3 lanes of traffic is going to merge down into 2 lanes of traffic. And I see a person who just was going way above the speed limit, who decided he wanted to be in my lane. He was 3 lanes away from me. So he drove straight across 3 lanes. And thank goodness the car behind me also saw what this individual was doing. And I slammed on the brakes. I laid on the horn. I'm yelling. My mother's all upset on the other end of the line. She's yelling. And because, in my mind, I saw the impact happening. I saw this car hitting me. And it, so much goes through your mind in that moment. And I thankfully avoided an accident, and nobody was hurt. The guy purposely, and it was a man, because I did end up seeing him after the fact. And I said to my mother, I don't know how I avoided that. It was by a hair that I avoided this accident. So needless to say, I got to work, I was very amped up. I was very stressed about all of this. And I didn't even think to look at my car because, right, I didn't feel the impact. And a few days later, I parked my car in the driveway instead of the garage, and I happened to be out walking the dog. And when I came back, I'm like, well, that's odd. Why does my car look like that? And I have a black vehicle, and there was gray paint on my car because he actually did swipe down the side of my car. There is no dent, but he did hit right above my front passenger wheel well. And had he hit me any harder, he probably would have spun my car around. So, you know, that is a traumatic experience, right? So I had to acknowledge that, this happened. It was, it would have been a complete and utter accident. It would have been absolutely catastrophic. It would have obviously harmed, if not killed, myself and or anyone else around me, because we were going at very high speeds. High speeds for a construction site, we were going at 45 miles an hour. But when you're driving large, heavy vehicles, a lot of damage can happen. And the angle he would have hit me at would have spun my car around, where I would have then been facing the wrong way on an expressway. So that would have been a very bad situation for a lot of people, not just myself. So I had to acknowledge this situation. I had to reflect upon it. And, was there anything else I could have done? Thankfully, I saw what was happening. I was able to react appropriately and safely so that the people behind me didn't get hurt as well. And thankfully, they saw it happen. And then what lessons did I learn from all of this? Well, I learned that not everybody drives appropriately. I learned that I was able to handle the situation, a high stress situation, and be able to get through it, without harm to anything. And so that's kind of like a little bit of thing. And I know we talk a lot about personal, dark personality traits and, traumatic abuse in that regard, but you can relate, you can see a traumatic situation, and how your feelings and your emotions amp up, what your body responds with, and what you have to do to kind of get yourself through it. Thank you. Yes, I am so glad that we were both safe. Yes, my poor mom was very shaken, listening to me scream and say not nice words to this individual who, who did this. And just to know that after he did that, as I said, the lanes were merging down from 3 lanes to 2 lanes. He ended up like 2 cars ahead of me. So all of that just to really get nowhere. There was really no reason that he could have done that, and I was speaking obviously with my mother, and she said to me, if you're in that much of a hurry, you should have left for work a couple minutes earlier. And exactly, because if because then what does your mind do? Your mind starts playing all these games and tricks, oh, well, you start making up these stories, these scenarios on why this happened. If you're that late to work, why did you not leave earlier, especially if you know you're going to be traveling through a construction zone? So, some of those things. But then what happens after we acknowledge it and we do a safe self-care and we look at the lessons that we've learned, and I gave myself the grace and the forgiveness that, I was safe in all of this. And instead of being upset that I now have this, gray paint down the side of my vehicle, which admittedly is very upsetting, I gave myself the grace that it's only gray paint. It could have been much worse. I could have been in the hospital. I could have been killed. So I will take gray paint on my vehicle any day over being harmed. So that was my lesson, and that was my forgiveness and my grace to myself, that I can live with a little bit of gray paint on my car as long as I'm safe and nobody else got hurt around me because of some other individual who was either not paying attention or was so absorbed in their own issues that they literally didn't care what they were doing. And again, too, it looks as though I can maybe get it buffed out. So, we'll work on that. But, so that's kind of where that happened. Okay. And what a little traumatic, you know, issue. Um, so some of the other things that we can do when we go through a traumatic issue, or, obviously this would have been a car accident, but, looking for the meaning, looking for ways that we can grow from this, in this type of situation. I obviously know, and you take your lesson, and that's where you grow from. I am way more conscious of what's going on around me, especially in construction areas, and I'm going to use that from now on whenever I have to go through situations like this. Obviously, I'm paying attention whenever I'm driving, but more so in construction zones, because statistically, accidents happen more in construction zones, right? But if we're talking about coming through a situation, from a dark personality or a relationship, whether it's with a family, friends, romantic partners, business partners, work partners, anything like that, any type of a relationship situation that you may be in. You have a lot of different dynamics with individuals. So, acknowledge the situation, reflect upon it, look for support depending on the situation you're in. Hey, if it's at work, you can go to some other person, a supervisor or whatever, to help you resolve the situation, that type of thing. Obviously, then you're going to do some self-care and reflect upon it, give yourself the grace. And out of these situations, when we are learning, we're going to take everything that we learned, and now we're going to share this with other people, right? Because we don't want to see other people go through situations that we've gone through. If there's one thing that we can do, if we can help one person, then we've done what we can do, right? And that one person can help somebody else. It's, you're paying it forward. And maybe a passion project comes up out of all of this, right? You might find something, you've come through some sort of experience, and what you've learned from it, you pass on to somebody else, and you're like, hey, you know what? That really felt good. That gave me purpose. That is actually helping me heal more by being able to share this with somebody else. And hey, you know what? I can build off of that. And this is going to be my passion project, and I am going to then pay it forward. And again, the more people you help, the more healing you get for yourself. And then when you get to watch other people go through their healing process, it just fills you up that much more, right? It becomes one of your love languages. Again, something else that we talked about. So kind of think along those lines. Let's see. And again, my notes are off to the side. And I know you guys, I did get a new speaker. I'm hoping everybody can hear me well enough, because I did not put the microphone in front of me, and I took the headphones off because it was a little cumbersome for me. So if I'm looking off, it's because I want to really make sure that the microphone is moving, so I know it's recording. I hope you guys can hear me well enough. You're commenting, so I know you can hear me a little bit. Okay, thank you for telling me it sounds great, because I can't hear it. But I do have my notes off to the side again, guys, so I'm just gonna glance through, make sure I've talked about everything, practicing forgiveness, right? Giving ourselves grace, finding meaning and growth. So it gives you a sense of purpose, right? That's where I talked about the passion project. So you find meaning for yourself and what worked for you. And again, this is why when I talk about the things that I've done, these are things that have worked for me. And I'm not saying that they're going to work for everybody, but maybe it gives somebody an idea of something that they haven't tried or that they've seen before, and hey, they might want to try it now, right? So that's kind of what I'm talking about. And again, seek professional help. I always make sure that people understand that there are amazing resources out there. If you're in a situation that you can't find a resource in your area, please feel free to reach out to the collective in general, or if you want to private message me or one of the admins, we would be more than happy to help you find a professional resource wherever you are, because sometimes it's a little difficult to locate some of them. Happy to help you and point you in the right direction. Let's see. When we're learning about all of these things, looking for our lessons, it empowers us, gives us a sense of purpose. It helps again with our healing, both psychological, our mental health healing. Again, helping others in our passion project. And another thing, which we talked about last week, was being mindful and our gratitude every single day, showing gratitude for everything. And I was talking to somebody who happened to watch the lesson or the live last week, and she commented, she goes, "I am so grateful for my eyelashes today." So I laughed. I'm glad somebody enjoyed that, because it's true. Everybody find one little thing, even if it's your eyelashes. But I was listening to another book today. It was a business book. It had absolutely nothing to do with this type of thing, but yet everything is connected. And I keep talking about that, how everything is connected, because that book had to do with gratitude. It's talking about business and being an entrepreneur. And yes, I do talk about being an entrepreneur a lot as well, both in the collective. I've talked about it a little bit here on the live. And if you guys want to hear more about that, I'm happy to do that. I talk about it on my podcast. I'm sure a lot of you know about the podcast by now. If not, scroll through the feed, because it is in the feed. I'm also out on YouTube. So you can look in there, and we do talk about being an entrepreneur and all the different things that are involved with that. But when you're being an entrepreneur, being in business in general, working, even if you're brick and mortar, working 9 to 5, practicing gratitude, it affects every single aspect of your life. So again, when you're looking for something in lieu of justice, again, this almost car accident, where was the justice in this? This man who did this, he's going to face nothing, absolutely nothing. There were no repercussions to him that he could have harmed me and or a bunch of other people. I guess if you want to say I have gray paint on my car, perhaps he has black paint on his car. Is that really a repercussion? Is that really justice? That, he was actually, quite honestly, and I don't want to be snarky, but he was not driving a very good car. It was, granted, at least he had a car. He should be grateful for that. But it was an older vehicle. It was very rusted. It was not in great condition. So, if I'm going to look at it in that light, where was the justice in this? So he has a little bit of black paint on his car. That's not justice. He could have killed me. But then, I have to go back and say, okay, well, I have to look at my reactions and what I did for myself and not worry about him. He is not my problem. I am not going to own his issues, right? And maybe that's another thing that we can talk about in the coming weeks, is knowing when to stop and not own somebody else's crap, right? We don't need to take on other people's stuff. We have our own things that we do to ourselves, because, we are our own worst critics. We're our own worst enemy. Fear, path of least resistance. We attack ourselves and look at our negatives more than anybody else's. So I'm not going to voluntarily take on somebody else's baloney that I have no need to take on. So we can talk about that, if you guys want to, let me know about that. And I know I keep bouncing back and forth. Let's see, what else do we have here? Increased resilience. Yes. So if you're coming through some sort of traumatic situation, depending again on the situation that you're in, if you're working, if you've come through a situation with some sort of a dark personality trait, right? You build up that thick skin, you build that shell around you, and that shell is your resilience. That's what you were able to get through that situation, and now you look back and you're reflecting and your gratitude comes in, and you can say, oh my gosh, wow, I've really come very far. Look at everything that I endured. Look at where I am now. I was extremely resilient, because there are people that unfortunately are still in situations because they haven't been able to find the help or the support to get them out of that situation. So their resilience is a little bit lower. I'm not saying they don't have resilience, because I don't know. Obviously, again, these are, hypotheticals. But you look and you're like, wow, not everybody is able to do what I did. So that's your resilience, and you own that. That's the stuff you own. You don't own other people's crap. And with that resilience comes your positive outlook, right? Because you're like, wow, when we're going through things, sometimes we don't necessarily know how bad it is until we're out of it. And then we look back and we're like, oh, that was really bad. I can't believe I endured all of that. And then again, the resilience pops up, and you're like, wow, now I have such an amazing attitude and outlook on things, because I was able to handle that situation. I got myself away from that situation. And now I have just the world in front of me, right? I can do whatever I want, whenever I want. I can do me. I can take care of me. I have the self care for me, right? Let's see. And with that, with the positive outlook and the gratitude, what else does that do for everybody, right? You reclaim your control. And I think I kind of started with that, with the self care. You, by doing all of that, that's regaining your control. And when I said about myself, when I implemented my Wednesday nights, it was because I needed to find me again. That was where I took back my control of myself, right? I wanted to find, hey, do I really like, doing facials every week? Do I really? That was how I was able to control a small part of my life, right? That was how I started to regain it. And then it starts trickling down to other areas in your life. And with that comes, obviously your emotional healing, your mental healing. And it also, my notes I had in here, victimization. I'm not overly fond of that word. Because we're survivors at this point, right? While it was going on, while we were going through whatever situation we were in, we were victims. Once we extricate ourselves from those situations, we are no longer victims unless we allow ourselves to be in some way, shape, or form. We are survivors at that point. As soon as we are away from it, we're no longer victims. We're survivors. So I know I have used that term here or there. I'm not, like I said, overly fond of it. So it says preventing further victimization is what I wrote down. But yes, because we obviously know we don't want that situation again. So we're not going to be going back to it. But it puts us more on the path of making our survivorship flourish, right? Let's look at it that way. And let's see. And along with that is our self-compassion. And we get that again with acknowledging and with reflecting. And that's when we give ourselves the compassion, we give ourselves the forgiveness, the grace, the compassion. That's where all of that comes in. So I'm hoping you're seeing how I'm interlacing everything. And it's not like there's a checklist and you're going to be like, okay, I've acknowledged it. Okay, I'm reflecting on it. Okay, I've this is the lesson that, I've learned. Okay, yep, I'm grateful. Okay, and you're not going to do a little checklist because it's going to flow differently for every single individual. Obviously kind of laying out a whole bunch of different things, but there's, a flow for, again, each individual. And again, after all this, I talked again about, maybe you'd have a passion project or something coming out of it, but along with it, you can create some sort of a legacy. And part of that legacy is your strength, is your resilience. But if you want to look further into it, a legacy that you can create from coming out of a situation like this, if you don't perhaps start a passion project, is you may want to consider some type of philanthropy. That's a legacy, right? You may say, okay, I'm not going to start a passion project because I don't know how. I'm not really great at speaking to people, but I want to do something. I'm sure, a ton of groups, depending on whatever trauma you have. It could be a health trauma, it could be an abuse situation, it could be a car accident situation. There are a lot of groups, nonprofit groups, that help others that are in situations that you may have been in, or helping others that have been in situations that similar to what you have been in. So your legacy could be maybe donating to them, so that's how you're helping somebody. That's how you're paying it forward. Again, I said passion project. I keep referring back to that because one of the women that I am working with through the school that I've talked about multiple times, her and I have talked several different times about working together on a passion project. So her and I are working on that, and that is something that I will talk about down the road when we get a little bit more put together with it. But it may look something like a speaking engagement or some sort of an event, which obviously I would announce. And if it is wherever all of you guys are, or some of you guys are, we would obviously invite everybody so that you would be able to partake in something like that. But some other form of legacy, like I said, with the philanthropy, you could give to some sort of charitable organization. You could perhaps set up a scholarship or a grant so that it could be given to individuals who have been in similar situations. Or if that's not necessarily your line of thinking, look at some sort of a creative legacy. There are individuals who have come through situations and their legacy is creating art, and they put the art out there, and that's what they do. That's their passion project, right? So we're going to put passion project and legacy, kind of smush that together. And again, like I said, the advocacy, activism, volunteer work, but also along with it, kind of like, what's your personal legacy? When people come through situations, no matter what they are, you kind of have your values change, right? And you now have values that reflect who you've become, who reflect the resilience that you have, and you pass those on to your friends and your family. So that comes out of it as well. And it also, you start to express more acts of kindness to people. And again, that's paying it forward. You smile at somebody and you don't know what that smile does for that person, right? That person could be having the worst day possible and you don't know it, but you just, because of everything that you've come through, all the healing that you've done, all the self-care, all the gratitude, all the recognition of the resilience, and you are starting to be more of yourself. You've come out of your head. Remember, I've talked about that, and into our heart again. And you now wake up every morning. It's a good day for a good day, and you're on your way out the door, and you get to work, or you get to wherever you're going, and you just see somebody and you just smile at them. You don't know that person wasn't just in an almost fatal car accident and was having a bad day. So that smile meant everything to them. So, think about something like that. And so I guess that's really it. I kind of covered a lot. I kind of rambled a lot. I guess you guys are noticing that I ramble a lot, right? You can say it. It's okay. I know I do it. And I went a little bit longer. I know I've been in and out sometimes, like really quick. And then some days I ramble a lot, like tonight. So I've kept you on here for a little while. But that's what I have. If you guys have any other ideas, I am extremely appreciative of everybody who has been reaching out to me and who have been asking me to talk about specific topics. So, like I said, this was one that had come up to what can you do if there's something in lieu of justice? And again, I hope this helped in coming to terms when, you know, the other, if it's if it's an individual, if that individual doesn't have justice, you know, serve some sort of justice, how we come to terms with it, we come to terms with it by doing all of our interior work and giving ourselves the grace, and realizing that it's about us and we're not going to own the crap of the other people. So again, if you guys want me to talk about owning somebody else's stuff and letting them continue to have it and separating ourselves, happy to do that, and keep the ideas coming if there's things that you want me to talk about. Don't forget the podcast. It is in the group. It is out on YouTube. Tell your friends, tell your family, like, subscribe, yada, yada, yada. And don't forget that the course is out there at the RivkaLeah Collective. You can look up that on Stan Store and you'll find it. There's the course, there's meditation stuff, there's journal things, there's lots of good stuff out there. Oh, and out on YouTube, there is meditation too, if you guys want to try that out. I did create a meditation for you guys. So feel free to look that up. And if you, like I said, have anything else, drop me a line or one of the admins. We're here for you. I hope everybody has a fabulous weekend. Enjoy it. And I will see everybody. Oops. I was going to play music for you on the way out, but I don't think I'm going to be able to. Hold on. I want to play music for you. Here, let's play a little bit of music again. What did I play before? Oh, I played Feeding the Ducks. Let's listen to Feeding the Ducks. So cheers, everybody.